Hey Unsense Nerds, I'm Zach2Ks and welcome back. After what felt like way too long, Kevin Feige decided to grace us with another MCU property, this time from a villainous perspective. Seriously Disney, what is it with all these villain properties? First we get Maleficent, then Cruella, now we're on to Loki. This is getting out of hand. But not really, because Loki, which premiered this past Wednesday on Disney+, already seems like it's going to be the most fun MCU show yet. We're going to get into some of my thoughts and reactions for the first episode, so let's get started. We start off with a flashback scene to Endgame, where we first see the Avengers go back in time to the first movie and defeat Loki and take him away. The whole part where we see Loki steal the Tesseract, and that's when he gets teleported in the movie, that's exactly where we pick up here. And we see an updated Marvel logo as the Marvel Studios emblem appears. It's green and gold, obviously representing Loki colors. And then we pick up in the desert after he crash lands from his Tesseract portal. And this is really cool because it was kind of a nod to the thing that started it all, Iron Man, when he first is in the desert after his Mach 1 experiment. That was pretty cool to see. And we can tell right away that this is still the 2012 Avengers movie Loki. So one of the things that this show had a challenge from the beginning, that I thought at least, was Loki did a lot of character progression from the Avengers to when we last see him in Endgame. There was a lot of growth there as a brother, as a son, just as an overall person and character. And it was one of the things I thought they were going to have trouble with was how do you make that Loki the 2012 Loki again? But right away they show us 2012 Loki. He gets up on his high horse and he starts talking down to these people in the desert, trying to, what seems like again, subjugate them, just like he did in 2012. So they get off running with this concept of this is still the evil Loki. Go back and forget the other one. This is the bad Loki. Now then we see the TVA come into play, and they were pretty cool. I liked a lot of their gadgets and stuff like that. I'm not too familiar with the TVA. I've read them in passing, but I never outright saw a story that involved them. And I thought it was awesome how Loki was just bitch slapped by Wunmi Musaku from Lovecraft Country, which if you have not seen that show either, that show is phenomenal. Definitely give it a shot. It's on HBO Max. Next we are taken to the TVA facility, which has a really cool 50s theme and aesthetic to it, which I enjoyed throughout the show. The whole office has that feel to it. In the main office we see a Skrull dressed as a jogger, or mob boss, can't really tell, he's wearing a tracksuit. We next get a sequence of scenes where Loki is being processed through the TVA facility, and one of these processing scenes involves him having to sign a piece of paper for everything he's ever said, which, if you ask me, I feel like he's very silver-tongued and he talks a lot and he's very old. That stack should be 3, 4, 5, 6 times the size of that stack of papers. But, that's not a huge deal. But I did think that scene was very funny. And I like as we keep moving forward, it just kind of had a good escalating sense of humor to it. That was just fun. If you've ever been to the DMV, you totally get it. We then get taken to the final area for processing, where Loki has to get a ticket, walk through ropes. And while he's queued in line waiting to talk to the receptionist, we see a very informative video narrated by Miss Minutes, who is voiced by Kara Strong, who many of you may know is Harley Quinn in the Batman animated series. In her exposition, we hear some interesting things, like she says the word Nexus, referring to the Nexus event, but we also hear this in WandaVision. During one of Wanda's ads, there's an ad for Nexus pills, which is referring to Wanda as being a Nexus being. We move on, we do hear the words multiverse and madness used together, which is probably referring to the new Doctor Strange movie and the Multiverse of Madness that we have coming out. We also hear about a war and see an illustration that's pretty interesting, where we have 2 warring sides, one Kree and one Nova. This was described by Ronan in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but also in the background it appears to be Titan, where we see Thanos' homeworld. Those look like the exact ships that we see during Avengers Endgame and Infinity War. The most important thing that we learn about here is the Timekeepers. The Timekeepers are a group of powerful beings who first appeared in Thor number 282, and they were created by the last director of the TVA during the last reality, He Who Remains. We're then taken back in time to France, where we see Owen Wilson's character for the first time. He's hunting down a timeline escapee, which are called variants in this world, and it seems to be a pretty dangerous one. During this, he goes to interview one of the witnesses, and we see a mural in the background. Now, there's a lot of speculation about what that mural could mean, with all the speculation after WandaVision with a certain character, but the director came right out and said that that's completely a reference to a different character and not Mephisto, which everyone wants it to be. Next, we're taken back to the TVA, where Loki has to stand trial opposite Judge Renslayer, who in the comic books is actually in love with King the Conqueror. So that might come into play, since King the Conqueror is actually going to be the villain in the upcoming Ant-Man movie. But during the trial, we see more glimpses of the 2012 Loki, him still being arrogant, very selfish in his actions. So that was another good peppering in there of, hey, remember, he's still evil. Loki is then found guilty and sentenced to being reset, which in this world is not a good thing. Luckily, though, Owen Wilson steps in. And then we're taken into the core of this episode, this interview process between Agent Morbius and Loki. And in this, Loki still has his wall up. He's still being the arrogant 2012 Loki. But there's some great moments in these scenes. There's a couple of times where we have really good dialogue between these two characters. There are some really great moments in this scene, but I love when they take out the film reel of Loki's life, and we play back and we watch all the things that happen. We see that he's D.B. Cooper, which was awesome. We see that in the trailers. But they really play on the maternal bond that he has with his mother, which they've established multiple times throughout this series. So it's well in our heads as a strong bond. And you can see how that's where Loki starts to get affected. That's where they really start to break down his wall. Towards the end of the scene, Loki uses his very expertise sleight of hand to get his way out, get his escape. And as he's escaping, this is the thing that everyone is talking about. These Infinity Stones are paperweights. So we see a bunch of Infinity Stones in this drawer, which just means that they don't work here, because the Infinity Stones have already been established that they only work in their own realities, so they're useless here. But this also mainly serves to just prove to Loki how powerful the realm he is in actually is. It starts to make him believe what he's seeing, because at first he was very skeptical. He didn't think that these people could deal with his godlike abilities and power. That slowly got chipped away as he kept moving through the TVA's bureaucracy. Another interesting touch here is that we see a Honus Wagner baseball card. Now that's actually one of the most, if not the most expensive baseball card of all time. I believe it currently values at $3.75 million. So that's just interesting to also see in this drawer. After we go through this Loki escape, we then go back into the original interview room. And this is when we get probably the most powerful scene in the whole first episode, and it was brilliantly performed by Tom Hiddleston. We completely see the old Loki, the evil 2012 Loki, get broken. He starts to go through his video file and seeing all the things that he's missed, whether it's him making amends with his brother, his father, him standing side by side, shoulder to shoulder with Thor, ready to fight with his brother. And that was really big. And just the emotion that Tom Hiddleston sells in this transition is incredible. He does it so well. It's so believable. And this is really where they got that right. The whole skepticism I had of how are they going to make us believe again into this 2012 Loki that he could be good when we've been rooting for the good Loki for the past couple of movies. And this was the scene right here where it breaks down everything and shows us exactly the Loki we are now rooting for. And it's really the same Loki, because he's back during the Avengers. He wasn't necessarily evil. He just had bad motivations. After this, we're treated with another great scene between Agent Morbius and Loki. And their scenes so far in this episode have really reminded me of Good Will Hunting, that Robin Williams and Matt Damon counseling vibe. And this is the scene where we really break through it, and Loki starts to do what Agent Morbius is hoping for him to do. And this is aided by the fact that Agent Morbius tells Loki that the time variant that he is after is actually a different variant of Loki. Now, this is kind of shown a little bit earlier for people who are really paying close attention. A couple of seconds before, when Loki is looking at the video of his life, his time file, you can see it on the video as it's ending. It says Earth 616, Loki Laufeyson. But right before that, it says Earth 615. and then there's slash Earth 616. So I'm not sure if maybe I'm reading into that too much, or if maybe I just have a really bad TV and it's actually 2 Earth 616, but one looks like 615. But I feel like they were showing us a little bit beforehand, hey, there's going to be multiple copies of this character here. And finally, we are taken to a different timeline where the evil variant Loki takes out a whole squad of the time variant agents. Now, one thing that's really noticeable here, and probably going to have long-lasting ramifications through the show, is the troops never reset the timeline in this world. So where's that going to come into play? What is that going to do? I know it's something they're supposed to do whenever there's a branch off of the main timeline. They have to reset that timeline to get it back to normal. So are we going to get into this multiverse of madness? Is this going to lead into Doctor Strange? There's going to be some weird things. I'm really excited for these next couple of weeks to really dive deep into this Loki show. Now, this is the last scene of the show, but there's a little bit of Easter egg at the very, very end of the credits where you do hear Tara Strong's Miss Minutes give us a little announcement. But besides that, that's about the core of the first episode. So I really, really like it. I'm excited to see where we're going to go with this show. I'm pretty into time travel and those types of paradoxes that can be created. So it's exciting to see what they're going to do with all the material they have here. Now, where is this going to affect the Marvel Universe? Is Loki eventually going to get back to his timeline? I mean, who really knows? It's going to be a fun show and a fun romp throughout the entire thing. Now, let me ask you guys, if you had a time machine, where exactly would you go? Just remember to answer down below, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notifications button if you want to stay up to date on all the great nerd word. I've been Zach 2Ks from Uncensored Nerd. Have a great day.